So the scripture this morning comes from the book of Matthew. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise ones from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at his rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called the wise ones and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road.
At this time, I would like to invite the children of the church to come forward and have a seat on the carpet down here. Well, it's good to see you guys this morning. I have a question for you. Is Christmas over? Does it feel like Christmas is over? Does Christmas feel like a long time ago? A long time ago that you had a tree? Maybe some of you you got rid of your tree yesterday? Yeah, I think there's a few people that probably did that. And it's funny because in our church, Christmas is actually more than just a day. It's actually a whole season. It's a season that runs from Christmas Day all the way to a day that we call Epiphany, which is a day when we celebrate the story of the wise ones, the magi, coming to visit the baby Jesus. And Epiphany in our church, we celebrate on January 6th, which is tomorrow. So that's how we get that. If you've ever heard the story, the 12 days of Christmas, that's what we're in. We're on day 11 right now. And in some churches, Epiphany isn't even until January 13th. And in some traditions, people even wait till Epiphany to open their presents. Can you imagine waiting all the way to Epiphany to open your presents? Oh my goodness, I know. It is hard. Well, the word Epiphany, it's a really big word. Do any of you know what that means? When you sit down? Yeah, that could be what it means. But Epiphany is a word that basically means when a revelation, when something is revealed to you or shown to you. And so what we celebrate today is the story of these wise ones coming to the manger, to Bethlehem, where God had something to reveal to them, to show them. Now, do any of you remember how did these wise ones, how did they know where to go?
I think because of the star.
Yes, we had a star that they followed. And long ago, there were people who studied stars. They would look at them in the sky. They would see how shine they bright and where they moved. Yes, that's exactly right, Ethan. And so one day, these magi, they were looking at the stars, and they saw this one kind of moving differently, shining brighter. And so they followed it all the way over to this house in Bethlehem. And what did they find there? Do you remember what they found? They found Jesus. Yeah, and they were looking for a king, so it must have been a little bit of a surprise to find a baby in the manger. And yet, when they saw that baby, there was something about him and something about his family and all the love that was around them that they knew that this was God. They knew that this was somebody important, somebody that they should pay attention to, that this was love that they were going to learn about in their lives. And so Epiphany is the day in our church when we celebrate God shining a star and kind of guiding the wise men and the way that God continues to reveal or show us things about God in our lives. So in our church, we have a tradition of every year on Epiphany Sunday, on this Sunday, giving out what we call Epiphany stars. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And it's a little bit different from the original Wise Men because we hand out stars that actually have words on them. Can you guys see these words? So this one, does anyone know what this says? It says love with a heart on it. How about this one? Joy has a smile. And kindness with hands. And so the idea is that for kids and adults have even bigger words, more words on their stars, but you take a star and you carry it with you, and instead of looking just for the star in the sky, you look around for the word that is on your star. So if you pick a star that says love, then it means you look around in your life or at school or in your family for where you see love or where you experience love. If you find joy, you look for the places in your life that bring you joy or where you see people really happy. And the idea is that when you see those things, they remind you that God is there and that God is showing God to you. And so today I'm going to invite each of you to take a star with you, and you can carry it with you throughout the year as a reminder that God is with you and God will help guide your way. So each of you have your word and you can carry it with you, and it's a reminder that Christmas continues with us all throughout.
What a fun tradition this Epiphany Star Day is. When I think back about it, we started this tradition over 30 years ago when we were at a different church, and I even checked the pastor who was there was posted on Facebook that 30 years ago when her daughter was baptized, on that Sunday they picked 2 stars. One said daring, one said delight, and that her daughter has lived into those stars over all these years. So I think that these little stars that are going might, be able to come back and we'll find the stories about them. But the Epiphany star is so simple. It's one word, it's one star, and each one is different. When we receive our stars, and I know we're all anxiously wondering what it will bring this year, it's a gift. It's a gift that we will ponder, we'll find the significance of. And thank you to the star elves who make this happen, because I know that is quite a gift in itself. The gift is as mysterious as the gold, frankincense, and myrrh that were brought by the magi so many years ago. Our family has adopted some Epiphany star rituals over the years. When our girls, we have 3 daughters, left for college, I would make sure to draw a star for each of them, and I would put their name to make sure that I didn't cheat. And then I would send them via snail mail to them, and they would keep them, and it was a very special time. Having grown up in this church, and they were fond of LOUCC, it was a great connection for them to have over all the years, and they continue to ask me to do it, so I will continue to do that. Now their partners have also asked to be included in the Star Words, so I feel like it's a great connection, and we'll be willing to help with creating it if we get too much. When I get my Star Word, I always put the year on the back, and I post it above the computer where I work. Now, there are times that it calls to me to look at it. There are times that it calls to have me pay attention, and there are times when it's just present, but I know that it is there. I haven't saved all my stars. There are some I love less. Some I look up in the dictionary more than once to figure what is the significance of this. But I can't help but wonder if God is in fact speaking to me through this very simple message. I remember one year when I was serving on congregational care team, I received hospitality. It challenged me to think of the ways our church not only opens our doors, but also our hearts and minds to welcome others. I loved receiving belonging because feeling connected and included makes me feel whole. My family has also found this star gift to be meaningful in their lives, and I thought it only fitting to share their insights and thoughts as well. Bill wears his star in his name tag each year as a regular reminder of the gift he has been given. He's felt his star speak to him in different ways over the years. Receiving love felt comfortable and easy to wear, since giving and receiving love is who he is. Flexibility, maybe a little more challenging. It did encourage him to take a yoga class. This year, the most recent one was originality and has encouraged him to think outside the box. Our oldest daughter, Megan, reflected that the year that she received trust, she was in the midst of transitioning from going to school, to job hunting, to moving to Oregon, and getting ready to start a family. That star guided her to a place of clarity and stability. Melanie, our middle daughter, received wisdom this year, and as a mother of a toddler, one only knows that wisdom can help as she has strength and creativity to both be a mother and create a family where they all thrive. Ryan, our soon-to-be son-in-law, also got a star last year, and he surrounded this year with joy, which is very fitting as he will be getting married in June. Well, we hope that's very fitting. Very fitting. And he has started in working this year, and he surrounds his life with joy. My word this year was exhilaration. Merriam-Webster defines exhilarate as to gladden, to make cheerful, enliven, excite, also refresh and stimulate. That definitely was a feel-good star. It was for me a year of exhilarating times. Some were more loud, boisterous celebrations, some subtle internal swells. They awoke me to stop, take notice, and reflect on the joy that they bring. Favorite highlights for me? The birth of a granddaughter, Nora, grandbaby smiles, FaceTime included, engagement of Mackenzie and Ryan, walks on the beach, family vacation, sharing meals with family and friends, watching a garden grow, mountain air, sunrises, sunset. The list goes on and on. I believe that the Epiphany star is truly a gift that keeps on giving long after the Epiphany star season is over. I encourage you all to develop your own Epiphany star traditions. Everyone allows their words to speak to them in their own way. God works in such mysterious ways. I wonder what this year's word will bring. I'd love to hear your stories as well.
So I have to begin by confessing that when I received my star word in January of 2019, I was not happy or excited about it. My word was daring. And the reason I wasn't happy is because one of the things I know about myself is that I'm a conflict avoider. One of my strongest desires in life and relationships is harmony. And so I am most comfortable when everybody in my family, everybody in my church, everybody in my workplace are happy and getting along and things are going swimmingly. I'm not as good, and so this is the shadow side of my love of harmony. I'm not as good at speaking up sometimes when there's conflict that should be faced. When there's issues, for instance, of social justice or fairness that need to be spoken to. I sometimes find myself wanting to remain silent in those situations, simply to maintain that peace and that harmony. Well, sure enough, something happened this fall at the university where I teach that made me realize that I was going to have to overcome my reticence and speak up. What happened was one of my students, a theater major named Reed, is a wonderful, wonderful, talented student, decided that he would use an entertainment event, which is really important to the students at George Fox. It's very well attended. And it's called Lip Sync. And you can imagine what that looks like with college students. But Reed elected to use his performance and that of some of his friends to basically come out to the entire university. He did this using a song by Taylor Swift called "You Need to Calm Down." And it was an amazing performance, and it received a lot of publicity. But you have to imagine that this was a big deal at my university. Because at George Fox University, the official position of the school still states that marriage is intended by God between a man and a woman. So this caused quite a furor and quite a discussion on campus, as well as nationally. And all of these, his video was shared very widely. Reed actually got a personal tweet from Taylor Swift, which was pretty cool. And so the reaction on campus was very interesting. So first of all, the student government came out with a letter to all the students in which they said that they stood unequivocally with the LGBTQIA plus students at George Fox University. And they called for open discussion about something that had been not very much discussed for several years. This was followed by a letter from our president to all the students, which was not quite as affirming. He did reaffirm the traditional stand and that of the Northwest Yearly Meeting of Friends. And yet there was also some hope in that letter, because he talked about the fact that he recognized that not everybody in our community agreed on this issue. He encouraged us to discuss it openly and with love for each other. So when I watched all these events, I felt within me that I needed to do something and to say something. And fortunately for me, I was in the second year of a term as faculty representative, in which I had sort of a built-in forum for this kinds of thing. In that role, I'm supposed to represent the concerns of the faculty to the administration and to the board, and I give a presentation at the fall and the spring board meetings. And so I decided to take a couple of steps based on my own thoughts and my own leading, and also what a number of faculty members were telling me about their desire to step in and support these students in this effort. Some of the things I did was to get together a group of faculty that I knew were affirming and to meet with them. And then I later went to the president and talked to him about this group of affirming faculty and asked for his support, and he was very open to that. In fact, he encouraged me to get the provost involved in that discussion, and so right before Christmas, we were able to have a really open discussion with faculty and the academic administration about faculty members' desire to support these students. In fact, several faculty members told me after that meeting that it was the first time they had been able to share their faith openly in that kind of a forum where they talked about what they believed about marriage equality and about these issues. So this journey has been really interesting for me over the past couple of months. And I just wanted to share two reflections with you as I've thought about this. The first is this idea of speaking out as a prophetic voice. Joan Chittister says in her book, The Time Is Now, that often for things to change in our society, a prophetic voice or a prophetic act has to emerge. And Chittister says one of the things that tends to happen when that occurs is that things are thrown into upheaval. And this is certainly a good description of what's happened at my university. But she goes on to say that out of that upheaval is the possibility for change. And what I've come to realize as I reflected on this event and my part in them is that I am not the prophetic voice in this situation. That in fact, Reed is the prophetic voice. He's the one who did the prophetic act that threw everything into upheaval. And this actually took a lot of pressure off me because I realized that my role and that of the other faculty members was now simply to step in and support Reed and the other students who are making this call for greater inclusion and justice and love. The second thing I've reflected on is, had I not been a member of this church for the past 7 years, I wondered how I might have responded differently to this incident. And I decided that as a result of the education and the support and the people that I've come to meet who are Christians and also gay and lesbian and transgender, that I have come to think differently about these issues. And that has really been the thing that's allowed me to speak into this situation that was just kind of thrown into my lap. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to ask you for your prayers as this is an ongoing thing. There's some really hopeful signs. The president has approved a couple of task forces to discuss this issue. There will be proposals made at the spring board meeting for greater support for our LGBTQ students on campus. And so I'm very hopeful that some really amazing and good things will come out of this. I don't know what my star word will be this morning, but I'm pretty sure that I'll need to continue to live with the star word that I chose last year. May God bless us all as we are called to speak out prophetically and to create a more just and loving world. Amen.
Well, my star word last year was the word brightness. And a little like Gary, I had the reaction of like, like what is this going to be about? And I wondered if it was a commentary on me or my life, or had I or my world become so dull that I needed a little more brightness in my life. And as I went through the year, the answer really was yes, that's true. And when I got the star, it was a year ago on this Epiphany Sunday, and I picked it up, and because it was a star, I just assumed it must mean I need to look outside of myself. I need to look externally for those lights, those bright moments that are around me. And I love my life. I'm very happy with it, but I'm also in a stage in my life that it's mundane at times. Having 2 small children, which constantly need to be fed and dressed and cleaned up after and picked up after and taken to the school bus and put to bed and all kinds of stuff. It's just a lot, and sometimes it's a drag a little bit or boring, and so. I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a way I can look for those bright spots. And so that's what I did, a little bit of the lens that I had. And so there were times when, we'd have the spontaneous dance parties and we could leave the dishes in the sink and just play for a little bit. Or times when I would get the kids to bed and finally have a minute and I could call a long-lost friend and reconnect. And it became those kind of bright points here and there, sort of making a constellation of goodness that brought that light, reminded me of God's presence in the midst of sometimes a mundane life. But what I didn't expect, and what was perhaps most surprising, was the brightness that I discovered within this last year. That all the time I sort of thought, I probably need to be looking outside of myself, when in fact what God was inviting me to do was to look inward. And I discovered it most of all at a monastery that I went to this summer. Some of you know that I'm been involved this year and will continue to be for the next year in a continuing education program that's based on clergy renewal through Benedictine spirituality, which basically means through contemplative practices. So things like prayer and silence, chanting psalms, walking in the prairie or the woods, just paying attention to my own spirit. And so for 2 weeks this summer, I went to a monastery in Wisconsin, and I joked when I came back, even in a sermon, that while I was there were only 3 decisions that I had to make the entire time. One was what to wear each morning when I got up. Second was what to eat off the monastery buffet line, which they actually had a buffet line that you could help yourself. And then the third was what did my soul need for that particular day, and go and do that. So in other words, there were no, for 2 weeks, no sermons to write, there were no lessons to plan, there were no kids to dress, no meals to prep, no bills to pay, no household chores to be done. And I really could just pay attention to my own spirit and my soul. And what I discovered was just that spark of divinity that is in me. That's in me all the time, kind of like a pilot light that's always there. But what I had a chance to do with all those external expectations off was just a chance to really see and to feed that flame. To spend time in prayer, to walk in the prairie, to give it a little gas and to let it just light up. And it was like rediscovering a long-lost friend. But even more than that, it was rediscovering or reconnecting with the God that is in me. And I remember coming away from that trip imagining much of how Moses must have felt when he came down from the mountain and he actually had to veil his face because he had seen God and he was still glowing from it. And so as I've come back, of course, as soon as I came back, all those expectations came back on, which I love, don't get me wrong. But it's made me aware that I still long for that brightness to be a flame and not just a pilot light. That it's something that I know that I need to pay attention to in order to be the best pastor I can be, the best parent I can be, the best partner I can be, the best person I can be. That I need to fan that flame. And so that's what I've been trying to do this fall through my own spiritual practices. I get to go back to the monastery again in about 3 weeks for a flame tune-up, I guess. I don't know. But it's just been such a gift that where I thought I would need to find it outside of myself, the reality is that brightness is right there and God is right there. And that the more I've been able to be in tune and paying attention to that own flame, the easier it is also to spot it in the world all around me, because that presence and that light is there all the time. So I'm just grateful for the gift. I'm grateful for the star word that actually led me back to my own heart. And like Nan and like Gary and like all of you, I'm so curious to see what star will come up this year. So, amen.